I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016 and my boy was in standard 6. And all through, before we took him to school, he would look straight in my face and ask, "Mommy, will you come back? Will you come for visiting?" Deep inside me, I knew what this boy was asking. "Will you be alive, Mommy, to come for my visiting?" I'm Dorothy Mulei. I'm from Machakos County. I'm married to Reverend Jeremiah Mwoki, senior pastor here at Umoja in Nairobi. I'm minister of the word in Okamba Bible College in Machakos. We're blessed with 3 children, Ruth, Beth, and Moa, and we do want to thank God because He has been with us. I have been a tutor, and in July 2016, after I had finished just my courses, I had a bug on my head and a real weakness in my body. And then I went to Kijabe Hospital and they realized that my blood counts were at 6. And so the doctor said that there must be something that is eating up the blood. And so the doctors in Kijabe referred me to Lancet, where I was tested, and the blood counts and also my bone marrow. And then they said that I need to come for the reports on the 7th day. On the 7th day, we went and picked the results, and they said that I have acute leukemia. The only thing that I couldn't understand is the difference between acute leukemia and a single cell. But in about a few minutes, I Googled and realized that acute leukemia is a blood cancer. And it was a real tough issue. And I coordinated with my husband and told him we need to go and see my sister so that we may consult and see the way forward, because the thing really shocked me. And I didn't imagine that I have that cancer. And so we met with my sister, and then she we consulted with Dr. Nyongesa of Texas Cancer Center, and immediately they started the arrangements for the treatment because the doctor had to act immediately.
I'm Reverend Jeremiah Mwoki, pastor in charge AIC Umoja. Dorothy is my wife of over 24 years together. And the year 2016, when the news came that she has been diagnosed with acute leukemia, which is blood cancer, it came to me as a very great shock, because I had heard of cancers, and I knew cancer is not just a good kind of a disease. Actually, I knew when somebody gets cancer, that means that person will not survive for long. So I knew I'm in for a very, very tough journey.
Dr. Nyongesa went and put on me blood, because the blood count was very, very low. And then I was admitted in Texas Cancer Center for about 2 weeks. Now the biggest threat and drama and the trauma was how to tell the children that I have cancer, because they were all in school. But by God's wisdom, my husband, one by one, went to the children and explained to them that Mama has cancer and she will be treated and will be well. After the treatment, I became somehow stable and went back to my small duties that I was to do. But then Dr. Nyongesa referred me to a hematologist so that at least he may give me the way forward. And so the hematologist said that they need they can treat me partially here in Kenya, but because blood cancer and acute leukemia may possibly need a further treatment abroad, possibly it may not be able to completely deal with the issue here in Kenya. And so they said that they referred me either to either South Africa or India, and the treatment costs would be about 2.5 million. And that was a real shock, because the idea of the blood cancer had shocked me. And now again, the idea of the 2.5 million, which was really a big threat and also a big trauma even to us. Now after that, then we met, and my husband and some of the church leaders and the family and my family members met, and they resolved that I need to go to India.
The biggest challenge now was the monies that were needed to take Dorothy to India and have the treatment beginning for the chemo, which was approximated to 2.5 million. And for sure, God helped us. We got the provisions and we went to India. That was 2016 August.
So in August 1st, in August, we prepared the visas, because we already had the passport, and prepared our journey started preparing for our flight to India. And in September, 1st September, we had already gone to India with my small sister and my husband, Jeremiah. And so immediately we coordinated, and the next day I was admitted in Medanta Hospital in New Delhi, and they started off with the treatment. And when they started the treatment, they started with the chemotherapy. And after the chemotherapy, there were very many side effects of the chemotherapy, because the chemotherapy has so many side effects. I lost my hair, loss of appetite, and many other challenges that were in. But the doctors prepared me for that issue. And so after the chemotherapy, they had already estimated for 2.5 million, but it never worked, because there were other complications that came, and the chemotherapy alone eats about 6 million. And so my husband had to come back to Kenya so that he may continue raising funds for the treatment. So in September and October, they finished the chemotherapy, but they realized that the cancer had gone to stage 2. So they said that I cannot come back to Kenya. So my mother, who had also come to India to stay with me as my caretaker, met the oncologist in Medanta Hospital, and they said that they needed to do a bone marrow transplant. And so the bone marrow transplant needed a donor. And so we called in Kenya. So 2 sisters and 2 brothers in Kenya met, and they were tested. And we thank God that one of my sister, Jacqueline, came 10/10. And so she became the donor. But then the biggest other hassle now was raising a 3.5 million deposit for the bone marrow. We had already spent 6 million, and now were required to raise 3.5 million, and it was real tough on us. And so we tried to raise some few coins, and my sister came to India so that he may donate the bone marrow cells to me. And so when she came, she prepared and she was cancelled, and we were now waiting for the money to be raised in Kenya. But it was really tough, and the money, we really struggled to raise the funds because of the difficulties in it. But the doctor said that now they have to do another chemotherapy if we have no money for the transplant, because there's nothing else they can do if we do not have the deposit. And so immediately, a great friend of ours in Nairobi that we met, and a family friend, called my husband Jeremiah and asked him, have you raised enough funds for the bone marrow of the treatment of your wife in India? And then he said no, and then said, then come so that we may consult and see the way forward. And then the family friend told him, tomorrow I will deposit the 3.5 million in your account so that you may go and then facilitate the treatment in India for the bone marrow transplant. And so my husband came with the 3.5 million, and I was admitted, and my sister was also admitted, and the bone marrow cells were extracted from my sister's body, and then I was given the bone marrow transplant, and that was in December, I think December 22nd, 2016 is when the bone marrow transplant process was done. And so in 2017, they tested again, and they said that I have no cancer cells in my body, and but I developed some few complications, and the bone marrow that was to carry, that was to have about 3.5 million, again went up to 6 million, and that was a real challenge for us, and the financial implication was tough. And I stayed in India for about 10 months, and 10 months without your family, friends in a foreign land, sometimes it's draining. And you see, cancer has stigma and isolation. And when people, when they hear about cancer, they think of death, and they start planning of your burial, because cancer, it's not as good. And so there are so many other side effects, the trauma, the effects of the families, and especially the children. And the children have a hard time because I'm sick and I'm down, and also the family members. And I thank God that the family members have walked up with me. It has been a long journey. And after now the bone marrow, in April 2017, we came back to Kenya, but I was very down because I had reduced up to about 40 kilos, and my skin color had become very black, very thin, and sometimes because of the appearance, sometimes you have very low self-esteem, and sometimes I was in a coma. Sometimes I think the treatment and the journey is tough for the bone marrow, and there are so many side effects that come with it, and also the financial implication that carries the treatment. And so after 2017, we would come to India, back to and fro from India, and I think for about 4 times we would come to Kenya to go back to India for review.